use this mic.
Thanks. These guys have put together an incredible program, and there's a lesson in here for all of us. Several years ago, we couldn't figure out a way to do this. We couldn't figure out where to put it in NSO, and here it is. So inspiration for all of us. As these guys said, I'm the chaplain here. I also teach a little bit in the religion department, and I also am one of the co-chairs for the Sustainability Council. All of those things bring me to this with great excitement. So I want to welcome you to CC, and I know you've been welcomed in dozens of ways already, but I want to welcome you again, and I want to make sure you know something that is crucial to the life of this community. So try to hear my next words, not just with your ears, but with your heart. You belong at CC. You belong at CC. We wanted you, we invited you, you accepted us, and now we're community together. And over the next few minutes, you're going to hear from extraordinary people. Each of the speakers that you're going to hear from shares a common belief that to have a sense of belonging, a sense of community, you'll need to also have a sense of place. And that's why we're here this afternoon. For my part, I'm going to offer a few short vignettes about developing a sense of place. Now, my colleagues will help think locally and regionally, but I'm going to start right here on campus. And to do that, I'd like you to remember back to your first visit at CC. For most of you, that involved a tour. So here are a few things that may not have been mentioned on your tour. To start with, on planet Earth, every place has its people. Now, perhaps when you walked into Cutler Hall the first time, the oldest building on CC's campus, you might have seen this photo. And you probably thought to yourself, not much here when CC was founded. Well, there are a few women standing on the side, but other than that, not much going on in this picture except a building plopped down in the middle of, or perhaps you saw this picture and you thought, wow, that land really needed to be tamed. Indeed, a picture is worth 1,000 words, but it often doesn't tell the whole story. Perhaps this photo paints a more typical scene of early history of this place. And it's easy to forget that how we describe the history of a place determines who feels welcome and who feels excluded. Most agree that the Utes, the incredible band of people, were the primary indigenous people that inhabited and honored this land. And that also, in addition to the Utes, that members of dozens of different tribes gathered in the Garden of the Gods to trade, to interact, to share ceremony, due to the natural intersections of trails that ran up and down the Front Range and up into the Rockies, up into the mountains through Ute Pass. So, the first vignette, all of us can agree that we're not the first people to love this place. In fact, this place connects us to each other in profound ways, and we need to think about the people who are connected to a place. Second vignette, every place gives us a unique view of the world. Now, on your first visit to CC, you may have missed the early pictures of Cutler, but I bet you didn't miss the peak, right? In fact, many of you are here because of the mountain. Let's face it, there are some places that just demand our attention, and it's almost impossible to not be drawn to this mountain. It captivates us, it orients us, it calls us. Now, our mountain, as we know it, was named Pikes Peak after Captain Zebulon Pike on an expedition up the Arkansas River Valley in 1806, and his attempt to climb the mountain was turned back by deep November snows, and later his team was actually captured by Spanish who had settled nearby. Now, we can't blame Pike for trying, even though he failed to summit. I think he said at one point, no one will ever climb that mountain. But you have to think, is Pikes Peak the best name for a mountain named after a guy who never made it to the top, declared that no one was ever going to be up there? And if you wonder what the best name is, maybe there's some other possibilities. The Cheyenne call it Long Mountain, and that makes some sense. But the Utes have named it Tava, Sun Mountain, Sun Peak. For these sisters and brothers, our peak is where Great Spirit created the world, founding mountain, the primary mountain at the center of the world, by pouring mud, snow, and trees down through a giant hole in the sky. The Creator's daughter loved the place so much that she visited often, and it was here that she was actually wooed by Brother Grizzly Bear. Together, they gave birth to the Ute people, and for them, Tava is the center of the world. So why this history lesson? If you ever hear me talking about Tava, you'll know what I'm talking about. I'll leave the choice of naming the mountain up to you. But when it comes to naming a place, and this goes for more than just Tava or the peak, I encourage you to choose your words very carefully. How we name things makes a difference. Third vignette. Another consideration when you're exploring cultural history of a place is to remember that places hold stories. Some of these stories are out in the open and others are hidden. Perhaps you remember walking up the grand staircase in Palmer Hall and seeing the plaque honoring William Jackson Palmer, Civil War general, railroad magnate, founder of Colorado Springs. And you saw the place where his beloved dog was next to him, and students rubbed the nose for good luck on exams or on assignments. And you're told students have done that forever. Well, in fact, students haven't done that forever. It's actually kind of a newer tradition, at least since I've been here. So traditions aren't always ancient ones. But you remember walking through Palmer, and maybe maybe on your way out of the building, you even stopped on the outside steps of the building, and maybe you looked down Tejon Street toward downtown. While your guide told a story of how General Palmer secretly gifted Colorado College enough funds to build Palmer Hall, as long as they cited the building to ensure that an expanding streetcar company was prevented from laying its tracks through the middle of our main quad, where Tejon Street used to run. Pretty heroic story for CC. Agree? Unless you realize that the expansion of the streetcar company was the project of another early resident of Colorado Springs, Winfield Scott Stratton, a carpenter who struck it rich with the Independence Mine in Cripple Creek. Unmarried, not very close to his family, Stratton lived a simple life and vowed to use all of his newfound wealth to help the common person. He donated land for City Hall and Post Office. He provided bicycles to laundry workers, and on his death, donated land and funds to provide lodging and services to low-income folks. Now, Stratton acquired the streetcar company and began expansion in 1901. Just happened to be the same year that construction started on Palmer Hall. So now this historic story seems a bit tarnished. In fact, Palmer, a rival of Stratton, did his best to prevent the success of early public transportation in Colorado Springs. Now, I don't tell this story to vilify Palmer, but rather to remind us that we all need to be aware that stories lurk in the shadows. And if we really want to develop a true sense of place, we need to look for all the stories, the ones that everyone knows and the ones that often aren't told. Fourth vignette, and this is what I'll use to wrap up. Place takes us within ourself and beyond ourself to new realms of being. There's something more than natural, something more than human about place. Place holds mystery and invites us to develop our own sense of wonder. This is true of human creations. It's especially true of wild spaces, and when they come together, often something very magical happens. So perhaps when you walked through Shove Chapel on your tour, you wondered about the place of religion on campus. And for sure, spiritual life is vibrant and creative at CC. Dozens of different organizations representing traditions all over the globe. Conversations between those who think of themselves as spiritual or seeking or not at all. All of that is great and fine. But more importantly, CC is a place that honors the human spirit, that calls us to connection to ourselves, to one another, and to all that lies beyond. So now I'll tell you a secret. Humans cannot exist without place. And in this case, in case you haven't guessed it, I'm going to say it out loud. This place belongs to you, and you belong to this place. Now, an ecologist like Miro could teach a whole course on the ecological relationships among a single tree and its environs. But right now, I want to just say to you, be that tree. Put down your roots. Nourish yourself from the soil. Bask in the sunlight. Drink in the rains. And make yourself a part of this place. Before I step down, it's my honor to introduce Miro Kumel, our next speaker. And I could give a very long formal introduction that would impress you beyond belief, but instead I'd like to read a line from a letter I wrote a few years ago supporting Miro's tenure and promotion. Here's what I wrote. Colorado College takes pride in the teacher-scholar ideal for good reason. There are dozens of truly excellent faculty at CC, but occasionally someone comes along who elevates intellectual life and enriches community in a way that makes us better, different and better, and Miro is such a faculty member. I'll tell you, co-teaching with Miro on occasion has made me a better teacher. Hanging out with him has made me a better person. So my wish for each of you is that you get a chance to take a class from Miro, or if you can't, at least find some way to meet him along the way. So Miro.